Welcome to the Raleigh Board of Selectmen meeting for Monday, September 11th, 2017 at 7 p.m. at Town Hall on Main Street in Raleigh. This meeting is being audio and visually recorded by RCM. I call the meeting to order. First order of business being September 11th. We are going to have a moment of silence in honor of the victims of the September 11th, 2001 terrorism attack on New York. Thank you. Next order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. Bernie, would you lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Can I make a quick statement on 9/11?
Yes.
I was actually in New York, across the street from the World Trade Center on the morning of 9/11, and the thing that sticks in a lot of things stick in my memory, but the one thing that sticks most in my memory was that the towers were clad in aluminum siding, and when the heat got going, that started to peel off. And by that point, around the apron of the building were all the first responders and the emergency vehicles. And what was incredible was to see, on the one hand, the siding of the buildings were peeling off, and it was coming down like giant frisbees, like giant pieces of shrapnel that if they touched you, it would have sliced you in two. And the first responders were still going into the building as people were coming out. So there were lots of people, innocent people who died, but there were people who essentially went into danger voluntarily, basically clearly under fire, so to speak. And that's a memory that I will never forget.
Wow. Thank you. Okay, on the agenda tonight, we'll have a citizens' query from 7:10 to 7:15. I'll try. We have general business and old business and new business and minutes. We do not have any appointments. So let's get to general business. Number one, discuss Rotary Club of Ipswich cleanup of September 11th, 2001 Town Memorial on Cross and Pleasant Streets. Vice Chairman Bob Snow sent the attached pictures of the Rotary Club of Ipswich working to clean up the September 11th memorial on Cross and Pleasant Streets. Does the board wish to send a thank you to the group for their work? If you looked at the pictures, if you got a chance, they did a fine job, and the Rotary has been very kind in doing a lot with the what am I calling that? And the September 11th memorial. It's really nice. Bob?
I volunteered as part of the Rotary group to lead the group, and I asked for volunteers, and 7 people stepped forward. And last Saturday, not this past Saturday, Saturday before, they showed up, and Bill Freitag from Country Gardens had all the grasses and mums, everything laid out for us when we got there at 9 o'clock, and we worked on the project for an hour, and as you can see, they did a really nice job out there. And last year they came in, Bob Gravino was the president, and he asked if we could take over the memorial. And they got, all I can say is, they're a service organization, and they were there to do it. And Bernie, as you were saying, I was thinking of those first responders. And I remember a story of Battalion Chief Pfeiffer. He was in the lobby of the tower. It was Tower 1. And he looked across, and his brother, Lieutenant Kevin Pfeiffer, and he looked at Kevin in the eyes, and he said, "That was the last time I saw my brother." He said, "That will, stay with me forever." And you're right, they ran into danger. A lot of people got out of those towers because of their bravery, the police officers and the Port Authority officers. This morning I went down to the memorial at 8:40 and stood there until 8:45. It's still, I think, after 15 years now, 16, still sticks on minds. That horrible day.
Yeah, I had flown out of Boston on Monday, September 10th, to go down to Georgia for training. When we were down in training class when the planes hit. Yeah. So I have a motion to send them a letter. Thank you.
I'll give a motion to send a letter of thanks and appreciation for what they're doing. Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to send a letter to the Rotary, thanking them for their work in the September 11th memorial.
Mr. Chairman, should we include the country gardens if they
Oh, yes.
donated?
Yes.
them?
Also.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you.
Yeah, I'll include that in the motion.
All those in favor say aye. Aye.
I recuse myself.
We have general business number 2. We have a request from the Agricultural Commission. They will be hosting the annual tractor show during the farmers market on Sunday, September 24th from 10 a.m. until 12:30 p.m. We are hoping to have live music from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. In past years, parking has not been an issue along Independent Street or Summer Street. Many residents walk to the event. Thank you, Libby Tucker, Raleigh Agricultural Commission Chair.
I'll give you a motion to approve that, Mr. Chairman.
Second?
Motion has been made and seconded to approve the Agricultural Commission annual tractor show at the Farmers Market on Sunday, September 24th. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Moving on to general business number 3. Dear Chief Broderick, I am writing you this letter to confirm our previous discussion regarding my resignation. Effective September 19th, 2017, I will be resigning from the Raleigh Fire Department. Fortunately, my business, Nardone Demolition, has grown and forced me to focus on maintaining the success of my business. I appreciate all that you, the town of Raleigh, and the Raleigh Fire Department have done for me over the past 5 years. Thank you, Andrew J. Nardone.
I'll give you a motion, Mr. Chairman, to accept the resignation and send them a letter of thanks.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to accept the resignations, sending a letter of thanks. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, moving on to number 4, letter of resignation from the Council on Aging Board Member Robert Kirshner. Raleigh Council on Aging, Town Hall Annex, Post Office Box 523, Raleigh, Mass. 01969. Dear Mary, just to put the matter in written form, as I explained at the board meeting, the time change of the meeting conflicts with a long-standing commitment of mine, and hence I must resign from the board. My very best wishes to all, Bob Kirshner.
Make a motion, Mr. Chairman, we accept it and send him a letter of thanks also.
Second.
I would send it with regrets. We've
Regret.
been here for 30 years.
Yeah, no, regrets, that's fine, yeah.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, now comes the better part. General business number 5, we have a request from the Council on Aging Board to issue proclamation to Robert Kirshner in recognition of his serving on the Council on Aging Board for 30 years. The Council on Aging Board has requested that the Board of Selectmen recognize the service of Robert Kirshner as a member of the Council on Aging for 30 years. Mr. Kirshner was also a founding member of the Council on Aging Board. Would the board vote to issue and sign the attached proclamation for Robert Kirshner?
You have a motion, Mr. Chairman.
Second. Oh. Look good.
Motion has been made and seconded to issue a proclamation to Robert Kirshner in recognition of serving on the Council on Aging Board for 30 years. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. It's now a little after 7:11. We'll have the next 5 minutes for our citizens' query. Larry?
Yes, Larry White, Central Street. I understand the Board of Selectmen met with the Triton School concerning the upcoming budget, and I just wanted to remind the board that in the last 5 years there have been 10 overrides by the police and fire department due to budget constraints that they would have to ask for additional funds. And I hope that the Board of Selectmen will consider a no increase budget for Triton. And that being no 2.5% increase, no tax increase, a flat budget. And if Triton needs additional funds, that they put in for a override and go from there. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to clarify a point, that the 2 members of the Board of Selectmen did attend that meeting, so it was not a meeting of the board going up, and you were
Correct.
in attendance. And I do want to acknowledge again the attendance of the 2 members of the Salisbury Board of Selectmen, Wilman McDonald and Greg Jason.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, going on to general business. Number 6, we have road opening permits from National Grid for the following: to open 190 Haverhill Street for gas valve repair, to open intersection of Meadows Lane and Haverhill Street for gas valve repair, to open 981 Haverhill Street for gas valve repair, to open 6 Bradford Street for gas valve repair, to open the intersection of Haverhill Street and Daniels Road near 585 Haverhill Street for gas valve repair. The road opening permits were signed off by the staff for the locations listed above. Any comments, questions? Thank you. Bernie?
It just strikes me that there are 5 gas valve repairs, not that we shouldn't do them, but is there any explanation as to why there are so many, and if this is, if there is an issue with the gas valves, is this the only gas valves, and how do we know that the only gas valves that need repair?
Good questions that we might forward on to,
I have, just to add, they do periodically, they'll go down the street, you'll see, they look like little cones in the front of the car. And if they run across, they're very sensitive, and they can pick up the gas coming through the ground. And sometimes coming through the ground, that garlic smell to the gas, it's filtered out, but that, the car is so, and the device inside there is so sensitive, they'll pick it up. And as they come down, you know, they have maintenance procedures. So I would probably think that's the reason for the valves being.
Well, there may well be a kind of not a problematic reason for them doing it, but unless we know, we don't know. So
We don't
I
know,
think
we don't
clarity, yeah, it's a clarity issue as to, is this pattern of 5 valves needing repair, that suggests the issue is there's an issue with the valves, and therefore we need to understand it. If it was happening to the water department, I'm sure everybody would be asking, why are we having all these leaks? And those would be very legitimate questions, and I think it's a legitimate question to ask the gas company as well for a more comprehensive statement about the situation rather than just a
We
request.
can look into it, but I believe it's probably general maintenance.
Thank you. Okay, moving on. Number 7, we have an invitation from the Archbishop John O'Malley to attend a special mass for public safety personnel on October 1st, 2017. To the Board of Selectmen, it gives me great pleasure to invite you to join me on October 1st for a special mass and thanksgiving to God for all the men and women who serve our communities as public safety personnel. This mass will take place at 12 p.m. on Sunday, October 1st, 2017 at St. Teresa's of Avila Parish, West Roxbury. Invitations have been sent to hundreds of agencies throughout the Archdiocese of Boston, which comprises 144 cities and towns in eastern Massachusetts. And we encourage all public safety personnel and their families, regardless of their faith, to be part of this special mass. It is important to show these men and women, as well as their families, that we support them and pray for them. They are our heroes and heroines, and we wish to pay tribute to them and ask for God's blessing upon them. During the Mass, we also wish to remember those who have died in the line of duty and to honor their families. Your presence at this Mass will be an honor for those who have made the ultimate sacrifice for our safety and security. In honor to plan accordingly, I would kindly ask you to respond using the enclosed RSVP card no later than Friday, September 22nd. Allow me this moment to thank you again for your continued service to the public and to assure you of my prayers for you and all those who serve along with you. Looking forward to thanking you in person at the Public Safety Mass. I am sincerely yours in Christ, Sean O'Malley, Archbishop of Boston. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, will any of the selectmen be going to that, so we could respond? Or if you want to think about it, let us know.
I'm not available.
Yeah, I can't make it.
No?
October 1st, Sunday,
Yeah,
check schedule.
okay.
Okay.
General business number 8. Dear Chairman Perry, the Gene Geiger Crisis Center would be honored if you would join us at our annual Walk Against Domestic Violence, commemorating our 35 years of service to the local communities. The walk will be held on Sunday, October 1st, 2017. On Sunday morning at 8 a.m., hundreds of individuals, families, local businesses, students, and church groups will join together for the Gene Geiger Crisis Center's annual Walk Against Domestic Violence. The purpose of the walk is to heighten awareness about domestic violence and its impact on the residents of our communities, while raising much-needed dollars to support the free services that we provide every day. This year's walk will include music, a children's activity tent, a balloon artist, cheerleaders, and a refreshment tent. The Walk Against Domestic Violence is our single largest fundraiser and is made possible through the generosity of our walking teams, volunteers, and corporate sponsors. The Gene Geiger Crisis Center provides advocacy service to approximately 1,200 to 1,400 women, men, and children each year from Amesbury Georgetown, Groveland, Ipswich, Lawrence, Merrimack, Newbury, Newburyport, Raleigh, Salisbury, and West Newbury. Ultimately, our objective is to foster a culture in which domestic violence and abusive behavior are not tolerated. The walk allows us to take a visible and proactive stance against a very real problem that often happens behind closed doors. Victims of domestic violence are our friends, family members, employees, or neighbors. So please consider joining us on October 1st for a fun-filled morning that helps generate funds for this critically important cause. Walk with us or form your own team. Should you have questions or to RSVP, please contact Kelly Bachewski, our event coordinator, at 978-465-0999, extension 14, or you may email her at ckennedy@jeangeiger.org. We look forward to hearing from you and thank you in advance for your consideration of this invitation. Sincerely, Suzanne Dubus, Chief Executive Officer. So we are invited. General business number 9. We're asked to set the meeting schedule for October, November, and December, 2017. The proposed meeting schedule is October 2nd, October 9th, no meeting because of Columbus Day holiday, October 16th, 23rd, 30th, November 6th, 13th, 20th, 27, no meeting due to shortened agenda posting schedule because of the closing of Town Hall for the Thanksgiving holiday weekend, December 4th, 11th, 18th, and 25th. No meeting on Christmas Day. Motion?
Give that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to say, I'm unable to make the October 2 meeting, but other than that, they're fine. I'll second the motion.
Oh, okay. Motion has been made and seconded to approve the meetings as stipulated. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. We have, under old business, Massachusetts Bay Transportation Authority train service update. The MBTA has confirmed that weekend train service was restored on Labor Day weekend. Weekday and weekend train service is running on a normal schedule. Okay, moving on to old business number 2. An update on the Pine Grove School project. The Massachusetts School Building Authority has signed and returned the fully executed project scope and budget agreement. With the execution of this document, the project is now full steam ahead. Chairman Perry will provide an update on this project. We are going great guns. We should be going out for bid on several items. And again, the target is to start the actual build in June of 2018 and work through the school year of 18-19 and to finish up hopefully by September of 19. That's the target. I did get to sign off on this date and getting my name on a lot of documents, but the total project budget has been signed off and we're good to go. The architect, Doran Whittier, doing some fabulous job, and I was told that by some of the members that I've got to change my attitude in looking at the fantastic plans by Doran Whittier. They are doing a great job, and I've got to look at it as, wow, look at what we're getting for what we're paying. And agreed, we are paying a lot of money, but we're going to get a lot for our buck. I think you'll be pleased. Okay, old business number 3, an update on August 23rd, 2017 Triton School Committee meeting on the fiscal year 19 budget. Chairman Perry and Selectman Peterson met with the Triton School Committee on August 23rd, 2017, to discuss the fiscal year 19 budget. The Finance Committee Chairman, Larry Whitehall, and representative from the Salisbury Board of Selectmen also attended this meeting. Chairman Perry and Selectman Peterson will update the board on the meeting. We did make our presentation. We were on the school committee agenda, and we were not limited to the 3 minutes that they usually give somebody to speak. And both Dave and I spoke from the Board of Selectmen, and I got Larry White as chairman to come up and make a presentation. And I thought the 3 of us did a pretty good job in telling Triton exactly what we need and would like from their budget. It's going to take some work on their part, but we've given them a very strong indication that Salisbury is with us on this one. So, Dave? Any?
Yeah, it was, we didn't expect any, they listened, we weren't expecting a dialogue. Obviously, they haven't started looking at the budget yet, at least the school committee has. I did on the page 2 of the documents here, I did hand scratch out a recent history of our yearly increases to Triton. And my main purpose of doing that was to give them in writing the need for us in the last 3 fiscal years, this one, just not to prolong it, but we've got to make up in FY16 $135,000 from free cash, FY17 $257,000 in free cash, and in FY18 $257,000 in free cash. And that's over and above the 2.5, the half of what our increase in money is. And just as a further explanation, I gave them in the last 3 years, FY16, 17, and 18, our increases to the Triton school budget has been $1,326,940. So we've certainly more than paid money, more than a fair share to the Triton school. And I understand the budget constraints and the state law and all that, but I just want them to understand that we really have been kicking an awful lot of money, and we just can't do it. We can't continue taking all this money out of free cash, because when you take money out of free cash, it doesn't get replaced, and that money gets added on to the next year's budget, so we just keep going deeper and deeper and deeper into free cash. And the final explanation, I says, in May 2007, we had an override of $590,000 to fund the Triton budget. There was a couple other smaller, I think the library was in there too, but basically $590,000, which was passed by the town. In May 2011, we tried to have a Triton budget override of $130,000, but that year it lost. 2015, we had an override for the Triton Stadium. In 2016, obviously, we had the override for the police station, fire police station, and Pine Grove study for $800,000. And this year here, May 2017, we appropriated $39 million with an override. So the taxpayers have really done more than their fair share to support not only Triton, but the other town projects that we have. The idea was that hopefully the school committee will keep it in mind as they're going through their budget negotiations of how much Rowley has contributed to the school year after year. And the situation we're in with our budget, we just, we're going to go broke if we keep it up spending for Triton at this particular rate, because the rest of the town budget is, we're just stripping them of any increases at all, or very minimal increases. So they sat and listened, and I was very appreciative of having the Salisbury Selectmen there. And I told them, we understand that in the end, they control the budget, we don't. In other words, whatever they set for the budget, we're stuck with paying it one way or the other. If we have to go for an override that doesn't pass, it means we have to take the money either out of free cash or out of our operating budget. So they're in control of the budget, and we know that, but the idea was to let them know way up front what our fiscal situation is, and hopefully they'll take that into consideration.
It just happened too that this afternoon I was in the corridor and discussing the bills and stuff with the town accountant, and we both noticed that we get a monthly bill from Triton for 12 months of the year. And our bill this year is for $818,000 a month. It's a lot of money to pay out.
The other thing
Good
that
town.
you did mention was that we pay another, that accounts for that much money out of the budget, but we also have to add Whittier
Right.
and Essex Aggie on, so, 60% of our income goes to the schools, and whatnot, the different schools. Obviously, the loss of students, or reduction of students is an important factor, but even though we keep losing students, the bill keeps going up by giant steps. Okay, that's all I gotta say.
Thank you.
Good job, Rick.
Okay. Bernie?
Is there a follow-up step that can be established to find out what it is that they're actually doing in terms of the budget? Because the ongoing issue is, it's one thing to have the discussions about the budget, it's another thing to have the discussions about the budget that end up in late February or early March, giving us no room whatsoever to kind of, or them any room to kind of push back and find solutions. I mean, the whole issue, I thought it was great that you guys were out there really early, giving them a heads up early on. They gives them 3 more months to work on the budget if they decide to work on the budget. If they leave it again until January the 1st, well, we won't have changed anything. So is there a kind of intermediate step of finding out when they're going to start the budget process and when we would begin to hear from them as to what's happening? I understand they're in control, but I think that the town really has an interest in trying to get them to spend a lot more time working through the very difficult issue of how to build that budget.
The best I could suggest is that I could be in touch with Superintendent Forget and ask him if he can keep me or the board aware of where they are in their budget process. And as soon as they get into,
Well, even if we just knew what their budget, they would come up with a schedule, correct? They would come up with a schedule, so we should know that schedule as soon as possible and be in a position to kind of push back if the schedule, again, is going to lead us into this kind of no-win situation where we've got no wiggle room, no negotiation room, no degrees of freedom whatsoever in trying to kind of curtail what they're going to put on the table.
Well, you understand that we have absolutely zero power here. All we have is our so-called bully pulpit.
Right.
I mean, when they start doing the negotiations, Joe usually attends the communications meetings and so on and so forth, and hopefully we'll get Salisbury to work with us, but the bottom line is, they're gonna do what they're gonna do, and all we can hope is that they hear us and make every effort to keep the budget down. I mean, it's the way the state law is set up. I'm like a community that, like, say, Newburyport, where the city council and stuff has some power with the school budgets. And in the regional school, we don't. They set the budget, and if we don't pass it, we pay it anyway. So, it's one of the drawbacks to a regional school system, and it is what it is. So we'll do the best we can to keep up with it, and I know Joe sees the superintendent on a regular basis now with the school building project going. So, I mean, we'll do the best we can, but, we understand from years of being on this board that the schools are in control of their budget. The best we can do is make them aware of our situation, and hopefully they'll take that into consideration, and we'll certainly push it all the way through. But, in the end, whether it makes a difference or not is hard to say.
I think that our timing was good in that we set that first meeting for late August, because I believe they're in negotiations with the teachers' union. So that part is in process. But they have set their dates, again, for January to meet with the school principals, and they have pushed it back because we meet on Monday nights. They pushed it back so they'd meet instead of Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and I would never see the elementary school presentations. They're gonna do it Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And last year was the first year I saw all of the elementary presentations. That is already set. They have set those dates. I can't tell you what they are. I don't remember them right off. I think Christmas Day is on a Monday, so that makes January 1st on a Monday. So it's probably about the 9th of January would be the hearings for the budget presentations by the schools, the elementary schools and the junior and senior high school.
Well, can't we respectfully, and then I'll let it go, and you guys obviously have a lot more experience on this, respectfully ask for those first round of meetings to be in December rather than January? I mean, we really put ourselves, or we allow ourselves to be put behind the 8 ball. You know, I understand they control the process, but unless you ask, they're not going to change anything. There's no chance. But I see no reason
their
why they can't
their
ask.
budget process is to have the principals make a presentation to go through what their needs are, to go sit with the superintendent and give him direction as to what they want included. I'm saying they, the school committee, want included in the budget, and what will be emphasized as what their in order of preference on the what items will be included in what will go to the bottom of the list, so to speak. But they do start that in January.
The ones who really control this are the people at home sitting on their couches right now in their chairs listening to us, the taxpayer. They're the ones that can go up to the school committee meetings and they can voice their opinion, because there's many of those people who are on fixed incomes and retired, okay, who are being stretched. And all those people, the taxpayers, if you're listening tonight, as Dave said, we're going into our free cash to pay for this. That's not healthy. We're headed for a fiscal dilemma here. Greatly appreciated if those taxpayers who are listening tonight, who will take an interest in this and go to the school committee meetings and voice their opinion. Otherwise, you'll be hit with a bill.
The last few years, the only ones that basically have spoken up against the school budget has been Joe and myself and Larry, basically Rowley people.
Basic.
Yeah.
Last year, Salisbury didn't say anything. A few years back, all 3 towns went up, and that had some effect at that time, but that was a number of years ago. And, you know, as long as there's 2 or 3 of us go up and voice our opinion,
That's the
Bob's right. If taxpayers,
seniors showed up, Dave, a few years ago, and they voiced their opinion.
well, they have to call the school committee,
Yes.
call the school committee members and let them know, or write them letters. And, you know, that's the only, you know, public opinion can make a difference. Because the other thing you're facing is every year we get a few letters of people who want the budget increased even more than what the school wants, because they're looking out for the education of their kids. So it's a back and forth business. But the last few years, Rowley has been alone in asking for a lesser of an increase, and yet every year because of the way the state law formula is, we end up getting a huge increase. And I wish we had an answer for you, Bernie, but we don't, other than people need to get involved.
You're the taxpayer out there. You funded the Pine Grove School renovation. You funded the stadium project. The other ones that are paying the bill.
Okay, any other? Moving on, we'll go on to old business number 4, an update on the fire station and police station addition project.
Yeah, we met this morning. The project is moving along. We've been meeting basically every 2 weeks. And we're at the point now where we're at the final stages. And we've set up, we're really, within the next week or two, the final set of bid documents will be drawn up to be able to go out to bid. We've set up appointments with the Conservation Commission for the stormwater management permit, and the site review plan, we have to go before the planning board, and for a special permit from the zoning board of appeals. So we've discussed those with Kurt Baker and someone from the ZBA and Brent Conservation. So those are all done, set in motion, and the latest one will be October 18th, I believe, with the ZBA. We're gonna meet for a hearing with them. Our intent then is, by then we'll have all the documents drawn up, and probably while we're waiting for the permit process, we're assuming that we're not gonna run, we're hoping anyway, we're not gonna run into any major issues with either the planning board, zoning board, or conservation group. And Brent's been, the one I've been most worried about is the stormwater, but Brent's been part of that, out to the site and seen the plan, so we're getting all those plans into them. So that means we're hopefully in October, we'll be going out to actual bid, and we're hoping to start construction. Takes about 5 or 6 weeks, and Debbie, you're more familiar with the bidding process than I am, but it'll take a few weeks. And so by late fall or early winter, we'll be going out, get the bids back, and hopefully get started on the project.
Great.
Would it make more sense, or maybe this is impractical, but it seems to me it would be more sensible to delay going out to bid until after you've got all your permitting done? Because site plan review often does result in changes, and those changes can cost money.
Well, we've looked at that, and we're gonna be a little flexible on, we may end up putting some flexibility in when it starts, but the issue is that, number one, it's a town project. The abutters there really are very few, if any, real abutters out in that location. Planning board, it's not a subdivision, it's not a complicated road structure, as we're assuming that we don't see, and obviously we can't speak for the planning board, but that should be a relatively easy process. We laid all the groundwork for stormwater. The ZBA is strictly a 50-foot setback
Right, I don't think
for the new addition, and that's the one where we have to have the permitting time, but the architect and the OPM for the project both agree that any changes that those two boards make would be very minor and have no effect on the actual construction bids. And it just gives us a heads up and an ability to move forward at a faster pace, so we're ready to go. We're really not anticipating major issues with either the planning board or the ZBA. We think it should go smoothly. I mean, it's a town building, like I say, so, you know, we're not expecting to get any major problems. And the fact that it's not in a residential area, so it sits by itself and so on and so forth. You know, we're taking a chance, we understand that, but.
No, I hope there are no problems, but you know, our engineer, Larry Graham, is going to be looking at.
Larry should get the plans,
But
hopefully within the next week.
Yeah.
We talked to Kurt Baker, he's gonna get the plans.
But he will look at it like it's any sort of development,
Yeah.
you know, and I think he has to.
Well, he has to look at the stormwater, but once again, you know, we're anticipating that, unlike a subdivision, we run into all kinds of difficulties and problems with this. We're assuming that, but if Larry comes back to us, we'll wait a bit, that's all, you know.
Yeah.
We're not gonna go out to, we should know shortly from Larry, and Kirk has agreed to have him expedite his
Oh,
look.
good, good.
So we work with the various administrators of these boards, and, you know, if it suddenly something appears to be a problem, then we'll just hold up on issuing the bids, that's all.
Right.
But we're trying to get this to go as quickly as possible.
Right.
And through the whole process, we've had I don't know if anybody's got any negative comments as far as, you know, where it's going, how it's being done. I know I haven't received any. And our meetings are televised on a regular basis. We had one question from one person about the stormwater, but we answered that one. And other than that, it's, like I said, the nearest abutters, I believe, is Circuit Drive, and the one complaint we had there was they were concerned about the firemen blowing the sirens if the truck goes out at 3 o'clock in the morning. So I think everybody is looking forward to getting these buildings built and the facilities produced. And so based on that, we're assuming that the boards are, there shouldn't be any major problems with any of the boards, and we should be able to move ahead. So we're doing all the homework, and hopefully if we run into a problem, then we'll obviously have to delay it, but we're really at this point not anticipating that.
Mr. Chairman, just to clarify, it was the architect and the OPM are concerned about pushing this deadline out further and further, so we would expect, based on what the architect said, if we went out to bid it in the week of October 9th, as I was concerned, exactly as Selectman Pierce is saying, without having orders of conditions and permits right in a nice set of bid documents, we will be issuing addendum during the bidding process, so the site plan approval, the ZBA permit and the stormwater permit would all be issued as addendum. And then we would probably be extending the bid deadline to give bidders enough time, depending on what comes out of those permits and approvals. If there are any, significant changes or otherwise, to give them some more time to reflect on that, because it is the scope of the work. So these permits are part of that scope.
Right.
So if the deadline is, the middle of November, then it may be pushed out to, early December or something like that.
Because of the simplicity of the project, and I say simplicity in terms of addition to one building and a new construction in an empty lot in a non-residential area, we're anticipating that we're more concerned about the stormwater issues than anything else. I don't see what other issues that, we got driveways, there's no roads, there's no, those kinds of issues. I know the planning board gets involved in plantings and stuff like that sometimes, but
No, I don't think that's.
I think we're anticipating that it should pretty much move through the process. And if we don't have a problem with stormwater, the ZBA is, we do need that variance there for the 50-foot setback, because it's less than 50 feet, but being a fire station and a police station, we're not anticipating that should be a major issue. I mean, if they object to that and don't give us a variance, then we've got to go back to the drawing boards and redraw the whole project. So it's one of those things that we're all on the same team here, and if there's no residents or no abutters that object, then everybody's kind of seen the plans and it should go forward.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
Moving on to old business number 5, to discuss the Didax Building, 395 Main Street. Town Council Judy Pickett, in her August 18th, 2017 memo, outlined the steps the Board of Selectmen needs to follow in accepting the gift of the Didax Building and the parcel it sits on. To recap, we need to do the following. Number 1, place an article on the town meeting warrant authorizing the Board of Selectmen to accept the land for municipal purposes, General Laws, Chapter 40, Section 14. Number 2, undertake a title examination. Number 3, hire a surveyor, engineer to prepare an ANR plan of the site. As part of that process, we will need to work out an agreement with Didax on the roadway configuration, because the roadway is shown as a separate untaxed parcel on the assessor's map. Number 4, undertake a Title V septic inspection. Number 5, undertake a site assessment by a licensed site professional. Debbie has asked Peter Termini for a copy of Didax 21E site assessment. Number 6, hire an inspector to inspect the building, similar to a home inspection. Debbie has run this by building inspector Ken Ward, and he agrees that this should be done. Number 7 is have town council Judy Pickett work with Didax attorney on an agreement similar to a purchase and sale agreement. Do we have concerns about whether we're going to put it on a fall meeting or?
Well, we can speak about the town meeting after, but if I could get an authorization to start the title work, that would be helpful. If I can get the 21E from Peter Termini, he was quite confident they had the 21E when they took out a mortgage to purchase this property. I can use that to see if I can get a price from a licensed site professional to do that. If we have to do the phase 1, it's usually not that invasive. It's the phase 2 that can be expensive. So we'll see if that's required, a phase 2. I could get a quote for that, the building inspection, similar to a home inspection. And then I'll have the town council start working out this agreement, similar to a purchase and sale. It's not a purchase and sale, but it would be similar, committing both parties to move forward with this. And the town meeting vote is the authorization, and that can happen at any point in the process. So there are some things we do need to work out, though, with the survey work on that roadway coming in. It will obviously be a public road since it's a public building, but they're intending to develop that other parcel that that right now is open space that they've been holding under that 1993 ZBA permit. So that'll, I think, require some additional funding that I don't have any access to do the survey work and the subdivision plan and get it ready to go to the planning board, and then negotiate whatever the terms are for that roadway that's going to be coming in, accessing the general municipal property, which will be the Didex parcel, and then how that works out. And Mr. Pierce could probably explain that to go offshoot to perhaps a residential development in the back. But those are the things that we need to just look at right now.
So you want to undertake, number 2, to undertake the title
If I could start,
examination?
that's always helpful to have that in place before the surveyors work. They do like to look at the title paperwork. That helps. So I could work on that and get some prices for the Title V inspection, the licensed site professional, the home inspection, and then work out this committal agreement. And when the selectmen are ready to have a special town meeting, at least we'll have that date ready.
Have a motion?
Make that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to allow Debbie Egan to undertake a title examination and get some pricing on those other items. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, new business, old business, number 6, update on the purchase of the rear of 221 Main Street. Debbie and Town Council Judy Pickett are finalizing the wording on the purchase and sales agreement with the seller's attorney. There is a cedar tree on the property that the seller has asked the town to preserve. It has been marked on the plan. The seller's attorney has been away and is due back this week. We plan to finalize the wording in the purchase and sales and then have it signed by the seller. We will have it back to the selectmen in final form to be signed at either the September 18th or the September 25th meeting. Once the purchase and sale has been fully executed, Debbie will file the subdivision plan with the planning board.
Okay, we do have a full-size plan, so I don't know if you want to take a quick peek at this. We do have a copy of it in the package,
I don't think you have to open it up.
but it's very hard to read it. It's very small print.
Well,
I think it's pretty open and shut. We've discussed it many times. It's really a matter of having the attorneys just agree that, we've agreed that this is the plan. Rob's done a nice job of dealing with the winds. And it's this parcel here, it's hard to read the fine print, but I think we're looking at the outside boundaries. and make sure the wording on the purchase and sales is what we want, so.
The tree that they're asking to save is planted by their grandfather, and they were kind of hoping it wouldn't disappear. It does sit right on the property line of the other two lots that we purchased a number of years ago. So it is kind of like a boundary marker.
Okay, it's at that front corner.
He could show you on the full-size plan.
Okay, I see it, yeah. No,
Yeah, it's,
so it's halfway down that sidewalk.
Yeah.
yeah, it rides there. And all of this other stuff that's around the squiggly is poison ivy and poison shima.
Okay.
So it's not gonna stay there anyway, as far
We'll
as
get the
that.
goats down, we'll get
Yeah.
the goats down to get it away.
So they would like to save the cedar tree.
Okay.
But the tree is, it's on the boundary of the lot that we're buying, but once we buy that lot, it's in the middle of town-owned property, correct?
Yeah.
And it may well be where we decide we wanna locate a playing field. So when you look at the actual commitment we're making about that, about the cedar tree, it says the buyer shall, to the extent possible, preserve the cedar tree. That's a pretty fuzzy standard. And I would say you need to change that language, because to the extent possible means that we probably have to preserve it, because it's possible to preserve it. Maybe the buyer shall endeavor to preserve the cedar tree as long as it's not, such preservation is not inconsistent with the intended use of the property or something like that effect. I hate to get locked into an issue down the road about, about the cedar tree if we.
Yeah, if you have it right in the
If we need to cut
middle
it
of the
down,
infield.
yeah, right.
Well,
Well, there's fields already there that are being played on every Saturday.
right,
And that's the ones that are on the plan that are to the bottom of the plan. It's right here. We bought there's two parcels there that we bought years ago from two different owners.
Right.
And the other property is their home. This is the parcel they would like to sell to us.
Right.
And that will be a second playing field.
well, if you look at the dimensions of we're gonna build a Little League field. So that, if I'm correct me, Bob, I'm reading this, is the back lot line of that piece we're buying is 227 feet.
Probably.
So if we put home plate in that back corner, I think the Little League, on the private Little League field is 200 feet. You add the backstop, so it's maybe 220, so that you can easily fit the ball field in that back section without interfering with that tree. That'd be beyond the center field wall, and if we put a second field in there, using one of the rest of that property, it's easily, I think we can work around it. We certainly, if we try to pull out the tree language, I think we're gonna run into a problem with the twins. In other words, they really, I think the only thing they requested for, right?
Yes,
Yeah, I'm not saying we delete that language entirely. I'm suggesting that we rephrase it to indicate that we have to in order to use the property for its intended purpose. We might, at some point down the road, remove the tree. I don't know if I think to preserve our options, we should make that kind of clarification.
Yeah, I think if we're going, I think we'll bend over backwards not to do it.
Right.
And looking at the size of the fields, I think we can easily work around it. I just don't see it being an option, a problem. And being that the Gwynns have selling us this property, if we could possibly preserve that tree as part of their legacy, I can understand why they want to do it. And I think it's, as long as I'm a selectman anyway, it feels incumbent upon me to preserve that heritage. And I think from the size of the parcel and the type of fields we're looking to put out there, that I think we can accommodate that without a problem. Because we also have the other, we got two more, a lot of space on the other side, where there's gonna be some soccer fields and stuff that are already in use. anyway, so I think, you know, I hate to, if we start trying to rework the language at this point, a lot of effort's been put into this, and I think my own commitment is that we preserve that tree at all costs, and we're not gonna interfere with the playing fields. At some point, the tree may get a hurricane, the tree may blow over or something anyway, you know, there's no way, we've got no control over that.
No.
But I mean, if it's in fact, we could even put a little plaque out there or something, you know.
Actually, I've already mentioned to them that we would be interested in naming the field,
Yeah, I think whatever we can do to,
and they seem to like that idea.
yeah. I mean, they've been a long time around the family, a lot of history here, and at this point, we're at the stage where if we go back and try to Mickey Mouse the language to our favor, I think we may run into
Some resistance. I mean,
some time-consuming things, and our goal here is to expedite the process
right. They
as
seem
quickly
very
as
attached to
possible.
this. They seem very attached to this tree.
Yeah,
And
and
the children remember the grandfather out there planting the thing and taking
Right.
care of it and so forth and so on.
And the other thing is, we're in a position where we want to expedite this because for the sake of the Gwynn family, number one. And number two is we're gonna start working on a police and fire station. As soon as we take possession of this property, we wanna look at, we have money, there's $221,000 of CPC money available. To start to go down and build that first field, so. There is a time frame here that, and more for the Gwynn's sake than ours, but at least, I think they've been more than fair in dealing with us. And I just, that's my own opinion.
So that'll be on the 18th or the 25th, depending upon their
Yeah, so
attorney.
I just need some direction from the board that this PNS is okay, or if we should go back and maybe insert the word endeavor to preserve as.
I mean, town council can easily come up with language that can satisfy everyone.
The town council has already agreed.
Well, based on the
Agreed to, right?
based on the discussions that Mr. Murray's been having with Mrs. Green, you know, I conveyed back that the tree language was okay.
Yeah.
But you know, I just defer to the board. I would like to vote so that we can go back and say that this purchase and sale is ready to go from the town's end. If that's, and if we need another week, then I can certainly.
I mean, it's just to the extent possible, so.
I don't know what that means.
Well,
Well,
I
it's
really
really,
don't know what that means.
we could, there was some discussion about having that language in the deed, but the town council has said that we really probably don't want to have it in the deed, but, you know, in the purchase and sale, but it's depending on what the selectmen feel.
basically a good faith effort on our part to preserve that tree. And We're
Yeah,
kind of
we-
giving her our word in this, that
Right, I think,
there's probably no legal language that we could really agree on to put it hard and fast, but to the extent possible.
you just said it, Dave, a good faith
Yeah.
effort to preserve
Yeah,
the tree
with
would
good faith
be
effort,
fine.
and we'll go out of our way, at least this board will, you know, what future boards do, we have no control over, but, you know, it seems, in looking at it, that we could easily design the fields around that tree without affecting it, so. I just hate to see the process get held up. Going back, Bob's already had the tree discussion, I think that's probably been, well, the main point of contention at some point, but.
Yeah, well.
Not a contention, but a
It was
main
all
point.
part of the negotiation.
Yeah. So I mean, at this point, we're with the final nuts and bolts, and we just need to get this done so that we can move forward and we're ready.
What do you need, Doug?
So if the board can give us some direction from our point of view, the town attorney and me, and if the purchase and sale is okay,
Yeah, I mean, I personally.
in this
have no
draft
problem
form.
with the way it's drafted, the town council is, in all my experience, in all our experience, she's never steered us wrong, so I'm satisfied that if she's satisfied with the document, and Bob is discussed it and
Yeah.
with the Gwynns, I mean, between the two of them and and Debbie working on it, I think we're in a position where I would say let's allow, I won't make it yet, but I'm perfectly happy to make the motion. We accept the wording and move forward.
Bernie?
I don't quite remember, but I thought we paid fair market value for this property.
Yeah, we did.
Well, I mean, then as long as there's no mention of this tree in the deed, then fine. But, I mean, I would agree with Cliff's view is that we shouldn't be signing up. After we paid for essentially the fair price, we shouldn't be essentially also adding in a caveat to it, or a codicil, or covenant. It just doesn't make. I don't see why you would do that. If we were paying less than the market, then clearly they have an argument. At this point, we're paying fair market, and they've agreed to the price, and
I guess my only point is that tomorrow they could say, oh, but you're not gonna help keep our tree, then we won't sell it to you. I mean, it's as simple as that. I mean, yeah, we're not getting a sale price out of this, but it was an agreeable price that everybody agreed on. We agreed, they agreed, and we're agreeing that we'll try to preserve this tree. I think we're making a mountain out of a molehill here as far as.
I have to agree with you, Dave.
Let's just get it done, and we'll do the best we can to preserve the tree. And looking at the possible designs of playing fields, the tree is not shouldn't interfere with anything, at least in the next few years. Maybe at some point way down the road if they decide they want to do more. Because the other thing you can understand too is where this abuts the Brad property, we already have authority to build fields on. I don't know where the topography changes out there, but we can probably, if we have to, slice into some of that Brad property to make field designs too. So you got the Brad property plus this property plus the two fields we already own there. It gives us all kinds of ability to make any number of different designs to, whether it's soccer or, flag football or, baseball or whatever. And then the intent right now we have is to hopefully put two Little League fields in there, and then with additional space for soccer / lacrosse probably used for now. So, and we're gonna need some parking down there, obviously, to help out too. But I mean, at this point, I think we're belaboring an issue that I'm satisfied If we have to take it down, we can, and they've agreed to that language. So let's move ahead.
Motion?
Yeah, I'll give you a motion.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve the PNS. Is that what we're?
The draft,
The draft.
the wording, if that's.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
Okay, moving on to new business. New business number 1, we have to review the Zoning Board of Appeals special permit application filed by Margaret Henry to change the name from daycare to Montessori school by adding 2 classrooms to accommodate existing grades 1 through 3 and adding grades 4 through 6 at 121 Weathersfield Street. The Zoning Board of Appeals has distributed copies of a special permit application submitted by the North Shore Montessori School to change the name from daycare to school. Since that application was filed, a cease and desist has been issued by Building Inspector Ken Ward. Does the board have any comments it would like to send to the Zoning Board of Appeals?
My comments on this, when you look at the Ken Ward's cease and desist order, it's clear that he's basing it on a very narrow issue. That is that under state law you can't provide daycare to kids over 8 years of age. And he may be right about that, or he may be wrong, I don't know, because I haven't looked at the law recently. But when you look at the entire application, it seems to me there's a much bigger issue here, and that is that they're adding 2 brand-new classrooms to the facility. They don't say how many new students they're going to accommodate. They don't indicate, I don't believe, how many new staff members they're going to have. They show an expanded parking lot as a sketch. But it seems to me that this kind of expansion calls for site plan review to be done by the ZBA. Because, I mean, some town board needs to make sure that that the parking is adequate, that there's no safety concerns present, and that stormwater management is appropriate. So, and this is a residential neighborhood. Has anyone looked at the access to the school? It's a very narrow driveway. It's actually someone else's driveway that provides access to the building in the back. I imagine that's the owner's driveway, but I don't know that for sure. But basically, I think our comments to the ZBA should be that they should conduct a site plan review of the application, look at the parking, look at the traffic safety, stormwater management, and whatever other considerations they feel are appropriate.
It does state in their, from the North Shore Montessori School, that there are no plans to expand the school beyond 6th grade. The maximum number of students would not exceed 75.
Oh, it does say that. I missed that, okay. So now they have 40 students, I believe.
Right.
So we're talking about 35 more students, so we don't know what the staffing they're thinking about.
Right.
Those are all issues that would have to be reviewed in the site plan review process, and I think that's what should be done here.
Mr. Chairman, we've had, and the selectmen have received copies of this a while ago. Amy prepared a packet from an abutter who came into the Board of Selectmen's office, raising many concerns about this project, and you did receive that packet. And the abutter did his research and found that under the town zoning bylaws, educational institutions are allowed in all districts as long as they're not-for-profit. This is a for-profit entity, was confirmed by the assessor's office. The owner of the property did have her attorney call Ken Ward to say she changed it, though we haven't received any paperwork to say that it's allowed. But if you do read that section of that zoning bylaw, it does say that site plan approval by the planning board would be required if it was a nonprofit educational institution.
Oh.
Even though what the building inspector said when he issued the permit for the addition, he did it under the daycare provision, in which daycares are allowed all throughout, anywhere in town, the daycares are allowed, but the schools aren't, except as provided under section, I believe, 4.0 of the zoning bylaws. So there's a lot of different issues going on at the same time.
Yeah, it's governed by state law. That would,
And we did include a copy, and the abutter did provide it as well, about the statute on the daycares, and it's very specific that daycares and schools are 2 separate entities. So the abutter has provided a lot of paperwork. It was sent to the selectmen, it was sent to the building inspector. The building inspectors asked for some guidance from town council Tom Mullen, who will be at this hearing anyway on the 21st at the ZBA meeting. So he may be providing some guidance on this, because this application is not for the cease and desist. And right now, Ken has said there's a stay on the cease and desist, so the school is operating.
oh.
Yeah,
It looks like they're trying to get approval for the 2 new classrooms. That's what it looks like to me.
So it's very confusing. If we've got a verbal that it is no longer a for-profit but a non-profit, they should be before the planning board getting site plan approval under the zoning bylaws, because educational institutions, non-profit that is, are allowed in any of the districts, zoning districts.
I think that should be in our comments to the
So it's
ZBA.
there's a lot of issues here.
Well, it's going from a daycare to an actual
School.
school, which they ultimately are saying they're gonna have grades 1 through 6.
Right.
But it's not clear if they're discontinuing their daycare permit, then that's a separate permit managed by the State Office for Children, and other occupancy requirements are specific for daycares that may be different for the elementary age children. So that's, the building code issues, I think, are part of what
Well, I think
Ken
going,
Ward is saying is a concern.
yeah, I have to agree with Cliff. In other words, you know, if it's going from a daycare, which normally, you know, I don't know how many kids they have in the daycare currently, I don't remember all the details.
It's up to 7, I believe.
But
if
going from
Amy
a
did the
small
research.
daycare to grades, ultimately, in 2 phases, I guess, grades 1 through 6, with up to 75 kids is I mean, I would think the neighbors are gonna be up in arms.
I would think so.
And I certainly would agree that I think that, you know, we should, if we can legally do so, you know, without understanding the law particularly, request that, you know, they go through the review process with the planning board. I think it goes way beyond, this is a change, it's not only, it's a change of use, and obviously a huge expansion of the use.
Right, it's a
And-
major
and
change.
if we don't, if the planning board doesn't have the authority to look at that, then it's kind of there's a flaw in either our bylaws or the state, you know, which may be a flaw that we can't correct, but I think at this point we should at least try to, you know, like Cliff says, it's a residential street, and there's neighbors on both sides. I mean, they have a substantial piece of property with a backland, but
Small lot houses.
they're all small houses, and, you know, that it's surrounded by houses, and, you know, I assume that they'll be looking ultimately, if they're gonna have grades 1 through 6 ultimately, that without knowing what this large parcel of open space here is, it will probably be ultimately be outdoor play areas, or they're gonna have to have someplace for recess. There's a lot of issues here that go way beyond having a daycare. Usually have a small area outside that's, you know, 20 by 50 or something that's,
Right.
you know, for the kids to play in with slides and stuff. Having a school 1 through 6 presents a whole new issue, and like I say, legally, I don't know what right under the planning board regulations and or the state law has, but it's not only, it's a change of use as well as a huge expansion of the use. So I would recommend that we ask the zoning board to see if they can, in their wisdom, get a site plan from the review with the planning board. And whether that's legal or not, I don't know at this point, but I think and I would think that the neighbors who down there are gonna be packing that meeting. I would, if I lived in that neighborhood, I certainly would, because of the change and the expansion is gonna definitely affect that neighborhood.
Definitely.
So, not against the school, but what's fair is fair.
For the record, Mr. Chairman, I'm listed as an abutter, so I recuse myself.
Okay.
If you wanna make a recommendation, Cliff, to send something, you're more familiar with it than I would be. I'm more than happy to second your motion.
Yeah, well, I haven't looked at the state law in question. It's called the Dover Amendment for some time. And I know it does say, and I'm not aware of this distinction between profit and nonprofit, but it does say that you can't require educational facilities to obtain a special permit, but that the municipality can review for parking issues and traffic safety issues. So I guess I would make the motion that we request the ZBA to consider conducting site plan review of the project, because it is a significant expansion, and also to reference the section of the zoning bylaw that talks about this, and ask them to make a determination as to whether, or suggest that the review possibly may be properly before the planning board rather than the ZBA. And offhand, I don't know the answer to that question.
It is very clear that the planning board would have the site plan approval if it was a use allowed in all districts, which is a non-profit educational institution.
Right.
But they weren't a non-profit educational institution up until about, I think it was last week. The attorney representing the owner said that they filed the paperwork to make it a non-profit, so that they would come under that particular zoning bylaw. in which case they are a school then, I guess, an educational institution allowed in all districts, provided that they receive the planning board approval relating to off-street parking and things like that. So this thing is very fluid right now because we haven't seen any paperwork, and the
Right.
tax records here are showing they're still a for-profit. And that will change it then. As it sits now, it's a for-profit, and I guess it's an expansion of a non-conforming use, and that I don't even know, we're not sure. That's why when the abutter came in to the selectman's office, we sent this to the building
I mean, I
inspector.
think it may require Tom Mullen to sort this all out.
Yeah,
And maybe the ZBA should request for his opinion and assistance, but.
he's already looking at the paperwork that we sent him that Ken Ward asked us, because,
But I think we should register our concern with the possible impacts of this significant expansion. It's almost a doubling of the capacity in a purely residential neighborhood.
Well, I think we need to also, in our letter to them, address the traffic issue, because
Right.
going from 6 or 7, or whatever, a small number of daycare students to up to 75 kids that aren't gonna be in a school bus, but are gonna be dropped off, I assume,
Right.
by individual parents. Plus the
It's gonna be a
fact
lot
that
of
on,
traffic.
when they have, parent nights, and, I assume they'll have, activities involving the students, in which you'll have a large contingent of parents going, that there's gonna be parking issues and traffic issues, and, these are all things that need to be addressed in the,
And the access drive is very limited.
Yeah, I mean-
Yeah.
I mean,
it's a driveway, basically.
yeah, it's another person's driveway.
Yeah, so I mean, it's something that if we can address, it, also put the traffic issues in that, as well as the, increase in size and change of use, increase in scope, large increase in scope. And recommend that they, I'm sure they will anyway, have the, use a town attorney to whatever extent they need to, because this is gonna have a long-term effect for that neighborhood, no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
So
Do
I
you
think
agree
I
to
made
that?
that motion.
I'll second it.
You do agree to those terms?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Are you all set? Call for a vote. All those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Recuse myself.
Make one comment. The traffic issue is going to be a big issue because last week I almost got sideswiped from traffic, cars coming down that street in excess of 35 miles per hour. And putting more traffic on that road, I think is, and I live on that road towards Route 1, and the traffic is real big problem, not just the volume, but that's one issue, but the speed with which people feel as though they can drive down that street is just amazing. I mean, as I said, the car who nearly hit me had to fishtail out of the way. I mean, it was a bit scary, and I was careful. I was looking.
No, it definitely needs to be addressed
It does.
by someone.
It does.
Even if it's up to the ZBA, I think they definitely need to put some real tight restrictions if they have to allow it.
Okay, we'll move on to new business number 2, review zoning board of appeals application filed by Michael Sabatini appealing the building inspector's cease and desist order for all commercial and business activities, including agribusiness at 239 Main Street. Building inspector Ken Ward issued a cease and desist for all commercial and business activities, including agritourism at 239 Main Street. The Zoning Board of Appeals has scheduled a hearing on this matter for September 21st, 2017. A copy of the cease and desist is attached. A copy of the 2009 subdivision approval for the Bradstreet Farm at 239 Main Street is attached. Please see on page 4 regarding the driveway. Does the Board of Selectmen wish to send the ZBA any comments regarding Mr. Sabatini's application.
Page 4, number 7 is the driveway.
Yeah, I think the driveway's a big issue, because it's not a right of way per se, it's a driveway to the, in the deed, Bob, is it, it's worded that it's,
Right.
it's a driveway with access to the farm,
Farm parcel.
but not, it's not a right of way to, for commercial uses.
No.
You know, maybe legally it'll end up being that, but, because we're admitting, doesn't it say that when we develop the affordable housing, that the town will be responsible to create a road
Well,
at that point?
It does say that.
what would happen would be the person who's going to do the low-income housing would have to,
Right.
you put the road in, because all the utilities are gonna have to go in underground. by the zoning
I mean,
requirements.
that's when it becomes a road. Right now, it's just a driveway. Now, what the legal distinction is, if you want to have a business at the end of that driveway, that's, I guess that's a legal issue that lawyers will have to fight over, but
Mr. Chairman, it's very specific that it's chapter 41, section 81, and that would be the statute for making this into a true, like, standard subdivision spec road, and Mr. Pierce could probably add to that. So we would follow a process that would require approval of making that a road, you know, also through the planning board, through that process of having a road built to the spec of whatever the planning board's standards are for subdivision roads. I presume a two-way road and all the
Well, it's already
appropriate
been, the board already,
drainage.
the board already determined when it issued, before it issued this, what type of road
Yeah.
would be necessary in the event that the affordable housing is built. And I think it's referenced in here somewhere. But
Yeah,
it's already been set out in a plan, so.
So that would happen, and so that all that would happen in when this was done in 2009. The understanding is after the selectmen developed the playing fields on the active recreation, the Article 97 parkland parcel that abuts this area. That was our plan, and we were going forward, but the terrain was not suitable for that, and then we had the opportunity to pursue the Gwyn land, which is also abutting the active recreation. We need that to access the development of these playing fields. So that's why we've held off on the affordable housing piece until those ball fields are built in accordance with the subdivision decision.
plus, you know, if you're gonna put a commercial operation down, that is a driveway. There's literally room for one car.
Yeah.
It was like any one of us having a house, it's a one-car driveway for, I don't know what the length is here, but quite a length. So if it's for a house, that's one thing, but if you're gonna have 50, 60, 100 people attending functions, you know, the ZBA should require a police detail, I guess, at each end or something, so that we don't have, let alone, and the whole agribusiness, as I understand it, and I'm only going from what I remember reading in the Newburyport News about the issue in Salisbury. There was a right-of-way issue there, and I think ultimately the owner is selling the property and backing out of it, but this agribusiness is a scary subject, because I think the law requires, and I could be wrong, I'm not an expert in it, requires you, if you're gonna have a function hall as an agribusiness, you need to be using produce and things like that you produce mainly on your property or get from other local farmers. So I know of, other than the town farm down there, which the vegetable gardens for the ag committee has, the last time I was down there, they grow hay on, is the only thing being grown on his property. And if we get into this agribusiness, if he's allowed to run functions on there without providing, whatever, half the vegetables or half the produce or whatever, to me, that kind of opens it up all over town, that anybody with a barn can decide that if they got a vegetable garden, they can have an agribusiness and start having functions, which really creates a problem. And I'm sure if one does it, there's gonna be other ones, and we know some other people that are more than happy to do the same thing. So, I mean, we're opening a barrel of worms here with this. I know in Salisbury, they kinda lost the case, but I don't know all the details. Every case
Right.
is different. What concerns me here is that agribusiness is, if it was grazing cattle and using the cattle to feed for steaks and vegetable garden to have corn and beans and peas and stuff like that, I believe that's what the agribusiness is supposed to be. And to me, this whole thing just, it's opening a barrel of worms. And once again, it's gonna be a legal issue that
Well, Mr. Chairman, we
the
did
lawyers
get,
are gonna fight over and end up in court probably.
we did get a legal opinion in April, at the request of the town planner, for some guidance on this, and I think the recommendation was to come up with a zoning bylaw that maybe would set out the requirements on define what agritourism is, and, and the permitting process that would be followed, I think, a site plan. So I think that should be something maybe the board wants to consider and see if that's something that the zoning review committee or the
Well,
planning
we
board.
actually had a discussion on that very issue before the zoning review commission, and my take on the whole discussion is there were people in favor of it and people opposed to it, and it was impossible to reach any kind of consensus. It's also very difficult, it would be difficult to issue a bylaw that adequately defines what agritourism is. Like Dave says, is it more than 50%? Is it less than 50%? And then who's gonna determine whether 50% is met? I mean, it's a can of worms, I think, is the right way to characterize this. In the absence of a bylaw, that leaves it to the ZBA on a case-by-case basis to determine whether this is agribusiness or agriculture, really. It has to qualify as agriculture, which is protected by state law.
And it would be on the, tax rate is given by the assessors for any of the farmers that would be under 61A land as well. So I think that has to be filed every year with the assessors, to show that in order to get the tax rate at a lower rate because you're a farm.
And I believe they have to come up with a dollar value of the products that they've raised
Mhm.
to be able to keep that.
The tax rate.
61A.
My concern would also be on the liquor. There's no liquor license, no liquor permit.
Well, that would be the next, if they get it, that would be the next battle, you know what I mean? It's, because obviously if you're having weddings and, party-type functions, and that's the next, obviously most people are gonna wanna have, beer and wine or liquor or whatever.
And I would also be concerned about the barn meeting building codes.
Well, I think in talking, I've had some discussions with Ken, and, I mean, there's no way the barn currently meets with either the fire chief or the building inspector, the building codes, to run a business there, so that, but obviously, I think if he gets the permit, then the next step would be to, if he gets the okay to do the agribusiness there, then the next step, obviously, is any renovations to the barn would have to be done per the building codes and the fire codes. I mean, it's an old historic barn. As Ken says, when he went over to take a look at it, the birds are flying in and out. And, the rain can get in and out. There's no fire alarm system. There's no, would you need a sprinkler system in a building like that? If there was a fire in there, an old building, the thing's gonna go up fast. I mean,
The access drive does not meet the fire code.
No.
It looks at a 20-foot wide driveway now, and that's not.
Yeah, I mean, there's all
There's a
kinds
lot
of
of
building
things.
and fire code issues, so, but which one comes first and how I don't know, I don't think we know, but I think,
Road has to have a turnaround too, right? Fire
Sure,
truck.
yeah. The fire chief would want to see that.
Yeah. Are we
Of some kind.
gonna put something in writing for the ZBA?
well, I guess the difficulty is exactly, I mean, I think we can, I would say that I would be, personally, I would be opposed to it. I'm not sure to define what the opposition is, based on what is allowed under law. I'm not familiar enough with it to, I could be quoting saying I'm against it because of a certain reason, and the law may say. When you get into this farming stuff, it's a whole different, this agribusiness has become a big thing in the last few years, and the state's got involved, and I believe my wife was watching the EBA meeting they had before, and there's people from, remember Nico the dog, when we had people coming in from all over the country?
Who could forget?
Protesting our attempt to euthanize the dog. Well, this seems to be the similar issue in the fact that agricultural people are coming out of the woodwork in support of this. So, I mean, it's a nightmare. It's a virtual nightmare.
Larry?
Yes, I have a plot at the community garden there, and so I go there quite often, and you might want to take a look at the back of the barn to see what's going on. It's not exactly a open place or falling apart anymore.
No, there's been a lot of, as I understand it, there's been a lot of construction there that hasn't really been permitted, as from what I understand, but it's a, I mean, if you look on the website, we looked on the website that advertises the functions, and, they're showing all kinds of renovations that I don't think have ever been brought before the historical people, let alone the building inspector or anybody else. So, I mean, this thing is a quagmire, and like I say, I'm not sure how to put into motion all our objections.
Well, I don't think we need to, because the primary thing at this point before the ZBA is whether this is a permitted use. I
Right.
think that's the first step. So, I mean, I'll take a stab at it. I'll make a motion that this board send a letter to the ZBA expressing our concern about whether the proposed use of the property falls within the definition of agricultural uses as defined by state law, and our position that the proposed use of the property may be unauthorized under our zoning bylaw, and finally urging the board to consult the town council in making those determinations. I think you need to get the town's lawyer involved.
I'll second that. That
Yeah.
sounds good to me. Yeah, it's going to be a long, drawn-out battle, I'm sure. So, I just think we need to be opposed.
Well, we've already sent a letter, I believe, saying that they should consider the views and input of a lot of town officials, like the fire chief and the police chief. So.
And town council will be at this hearing,
Right.
because the building inspector requested him to be there, so he, and the applicant has an attorney, and that part of that was why the building inspector requested the assistance of town council, Tom Mullen, and so the plan is that he's going to be there and presenting what the building inspector found there under that cease and desist.
Okay, any further discussion? Vote on the motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, new business number 3, request from ZBA Associate Don Thibodeau to be appointed to a full ZBA member. Mr. Joseph Perry, Chairman, Raleigh Board of Selectmen, 139 Main Street, Raleigh, Mass. 01969. Dear Chairman Perry, I am presenting this letter of introduction to the Raleigh Board of Selectmen as a request of Mr. Donald W. Thurston, Chairman of the Raleigh Zoning Board of Appeals, who has asked whether I would consider appointment as a permanent member of this Board of Zoning Appeals to fill a current unexpired term vacancy. At the present, I serve as an associate member of the board and wish to be considered for the vacant permanent position on the board. Sincerely, Donna Thibodeau, Copy Donald Thurston, Chairman, Raleigh Zoning Board of Appeals.
I'll give you a motion, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve Donna Thibodeau as a permanent member, or not a permanent, yes, permanent member of the Zoning Board of Appeals. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And new business number 4, discuss open space committee openings and letter of recommendation from Conservation Commission to appoint Jenna Haig. Is that Haig or Hag? Haig? To one of the openings. There are 2 openings in the open space committee. 4 residents initially expressed interest in serving on this committee. Conservation agent Brent Bazelak reached out to all 4 residents. Ms. Jenna Haig responded to Brent and attended a recent Conservation Commission meeting to discuss her interest in serving on the Open Space Committee. The Conservation Commission has submitted a letter to the Board of Selectmen recommending that Ms. Haig be appointed to one of the vacancies. Does the board wish to schedule a time at an upcoming meeting for Ms. Haig to discuss her interest in serving the town on an open space committee?
My own feeling is that she's met with Brent and attended a recent Conservation Commission, and they submitted a letter recommending her appointment. I would have no problem with just appointing her.
Right.
I don't think it's gonna serve any purpose for us to ask her a couple of questions. Everybody's in favor of her anyway. If it was a competition between 3 or 4 people for one position, that'd be a little different. But
Right.
We'd learn how to pronounce her name.
I'll make a motion to that if
Second that.
Motion has been made and seconded to appoint Jenna Haag to the Open Space Committee. All those in favor say aye.
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 Plenty of work here without adding stuff.
New business number 5, discuss setting a date for the fall special town meeting. We were initially planning to hold a fall town meeting for the purpose of seeking funds for Phase 2 construction of the elevator project. However, due to a significant amount of handicap accessibility upgrades that need to be made to the building outside of the actual purchase and installation of the elevator, Debbie is thinking that we won't have enough time to get an article ready for the fall town meeting. She is recommending that we hold off on the Phase 2 elevator article if the board plans to hold a fall town meeting. We may be ready for a special January town meeting if the board thinks that would be a possibility. The other potential articles for a fall winter town meeting, our planning board has a zoning bylaw amendment article on recreational marijuana, authorization to accept the 395 Main Street, the Didax building. How does the board wish to proceed?
Well, just to follow up on Debbie's recommendation, I've been involved heavily in the elevator project, and we were initially considering a number of ADA required changes that we would have to make. However, I've gone through the building 2 or maybe 3 times with the architect, and the number and amount of ADA requirements is grown substantially, because we're basically taking a building that has really not has no accessibility other than a ramp and a halfway accessible bathroom. And the ADA, according to the architect, the ADA requirements are very strict. The state requires us, if we don't do them all at the beginning of the project, that we have to do them within a year. We have to commit to that. So we were talking about this somewhere in the vicinity of $800,000 available for the project. The initial project came in at a higher level than that, and the architect thought he could get it down to pretty close to that level, but now with the amount of ADA requirements. So it may be a situation that we're gonna be looking at some phased building of the ADA stuff and then do the elevator, or there's a bunch of different things. We've talked to the architect today. So basically, we're not gonna be prepared, and you gentlemen are on the CPC committee, and there was there was some reluctance on the elevator project anyway, and we feel that we need to go for CPC money. We really have to nail down what the project is, what it's gonna cost, what the whole project is gonna cost, and we're trying, the architect says he can get that into us, but it's become obvious to us, and he basically agrees that $800,000 isn't gonna cover it. And we would have to ask the CPC to commit to using, say, next year's money to finish the project. And at this point, I'm not ready to do that. And I know Debbie really isn't ready in the architect, because once we commit, with the state, we're committed. I don't know what the penalty is if we don't do it, but it's a commitment we have to make. So that was the reason, that was the prime reason for a fall town meeting, along with a couple of other things. I'm sure there's a few other articles we could always put in, so. What we prefer to do, and the architect's agreeable to, is we'll continue to fulfill the contract for the architectural designs. We'll get a full cost estimate of what the whole project would cost. He would look at what the phasing we might be able to do, but at least we'd have a complete picture sometime during the winter, so that the Springtown meeting, if we decide to go forward with the project, and, obviously the Didax building has part in this too, because if we do get the Didax building, then we may not put the elevator in. I don't want to nail it down any more than that, but if we don't get the Didax building, then we're gonna have to do something which, try to get some funds elsewhere besides the CPC. So there's a lot of issues here, and to be prepared at this point for a meeting in early November is just pushing it, rushing it. And I know Debbie said, and I feel, we go before the CPC committee with a half-baked project, they're not gonna approve it, and I wouldn't blame them. If I was in the committee, I wouldn't approve it either. So we'd rather, continue the design work, get our ducks in a row, find out, so ultimately, so this board can see what the final cost for the entire project, and if we want to go forward and need to go forward, we can phase it. But at least we can do that for the Springtown meeting. And even the Didax building, which we mentioned, is, if we make a commitment to that, I would say that we could probably approve that purchase if we do that at the Springtown meeting. Or if we have to do it before then, we'll schedule a winter town meeting to do that. But at this point, it doesn't make a lot of sense to spend $6,000 or $8,000 on a fall town meeting, which we're gonna have trouble getting people for anyway. And I'm not confident that we can get an okay from the CPC, which we have to go before in the next couple of weeks for the timeframes, to get approval to spending that money. So we just soon hold off on it.
Do you believe the Didac will take longer?
Well, I mean, we're trying to hone in on that and get some commitments to it. So we're at this point, it's, like we approved earlier, the different things that the town administrator needs to do. We gotta get some confirmations from Didax as to, we've got a lot of verbal agreements and
I'm just worried about if we put it off and we plan, for a winter town meeting, the weather, that's all.
Well, I think if it comes down to if we need it for Didax purposes, I think we can come up with a quorum. And if we get bad weather, because I mean, that's something that's a critical need of the town. The elevator is, by holding off on the elevator, even if we had the money, it's more time is money. It may cost a little bit more to do the project later, but the ADA requirements are such that it's just, every time I've gone over there and I come back and talk to Debbie after going over there with the architect, I've just come back and kind of shaking my head that, we've got to do 2 floors of ADA requirements, and we initially were going over there looking at, we gotta do some door handles, but now we gotta do doorways, we gotta make changes in the stairwells, we gotta do thresholds, we gotta, there's an awful lot of stuff that we really weren't anticipating. 2 bathrooms, we gotta renovate the downstairs one, create the new one up, I mean, it's just, I think $800,000 is more than enough to build the elevator, but it's not gonna handle all these extra.
Table town meeting for now.
I would say, you know, that unless we come up, these other needs that Debbie's listed, the other two needs here, and Didax, we're probably not gonna be ready for that either. At the fall, if we do Didax, if we can't wait till spring, then I would say we push for a meeting in
special
January or
meeting.
February, and special one with that prime purpose in mind, because we don't wanna lose that opportunity. And right now, we don't have
Well,
much
Mr.
back in
Chairman.
Didax.
If I may, we had talked about having an agreement similar to a purchase and sale agreement, and in
Right.
that we can spell out, and I looked ahead, we would be having a town meeting, it appears to be on Monday, April 30th, because we can't, the election has to be on the second Tuesday in May, and the way it follows this year, as it has a few years ago, is it would be on April 30th, because that's technically the first week of May.
Oh,
You know, that, if we
That's
can
town
work,
meeting.
if we could work out an agreement, in that agreement that we would have with Didex, the commitment for both sides to look at that April 30th town meeting, and then give us time to get all this work done that I think that the board will want. I mean, that's a possibility, rather than having a January town meeting. It's just, I'm throwing that out to you. We can still work on that, because don't forget, we're talking about, a lot of inspections and things that we're gonna need to have done.
Right now,
definitely.
we'll be working on a dual Didax plus the elevator. We're committed to a contract that we signed for the elevator, and we want that completed, so we see what the entire project was cost. Because
Right.
in the event that we do get Didax, and we ultimately decide we don't want the elevator, we still need, in my opinion, and I think the board, anybody that goes over there would agree, that if we leave the council on aging in that building, then we definitely need to make some accommodations for ADA, you know, upgrades and doors, and the bathroom needs to be,
Right.
a lot of work that needs to be done. I mean,
but not the $800,000
not
that
the-
it
no,
would
we'd be
be
for a
the
much
cost of
lesser
the
figure,
elevator.
and, you know, we'd have to improve the ramp and, you know, some other things, but, so, I mean, until we can until we know what we're doing with Didax, the elevator becomes kind of a jump ball. And like I say, for us to do that project, we are committed to the state to agree to do all the ADA stuff
Right.
within a year or 2 years at the most, and I just can't,
No.
with money being what it is, and we're stripping the CPC of every nickel. I'm sure there are some other projects that people wanna do too, so if, we need to know that this project is gonna move forward and what it's gonna cost, and until we get that number from the architect, and we know it's gonna be bigger than the 800,000 is currently available, more or less.
Yep.
We can't do a phase and feel comfortable in presenting that to the CPC or the taxpayers. So I would
So-
recommend that we postpone.
Do we have to take a vote to,
No,
no,
I
we
just,
just, our
I don't know what, yeah, I need
opinion
guidance.
would be that we're not gonna have a,
At this point, we just won't schedule
A
town-
November
fall
town
town
meeting
meeting,
and
right.
see how things work out
Agreed.
between
Yep.
Didex
Agreed.
and
Agreed.
the elevator project.
Just table it, right?
Well, there's nothing to table
Nothing
at this
table,
point,
we
but,
just, we
We're
agree
just-
that we're not gonna do it. We
Right.
haven't really, there's been
All
no
right.
formal announcement yet anyway, so.
okay. Very good. We have the minutes from the June 28th
Give me the motion.
regular meeting.
Give me the motion, Mr. Chairman, June 28th.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve the June 28th regular meeting of the Board of Selectmen. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We have the minutes from August 21st.
So is that, just a question, on the, are we doing the, would that include the executive session?
No,
That's separate, right?
the executive sessions are not here.
They're ready to be voted on. They were distributed to the board
Yeah, we got those
last week.
before, right?
Oh.
They're just not in the meeting packet.
I'll give the motion to accept the executive session minutes,
Okay.
June 28th.
Thank you. A second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. We have August 21st.
I was absent.
I'll give you the motion.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded for August 21st. All those in favor say aye.
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 Absent.
Executive session.
I'll give the motion.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded for the executive session. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Absent.
Okay, we have announcements. A mandatory water ban is in effect. No outside watering is permitted from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Friends of the Raleigh Public Library Chili Cook-Off to be held on September 30th, 2017, from 2 p.m. until dusk, with a rain date of Sunday, October 1st, 2017. Attention, all Korean War veterans who served in Korea. The Eastern Essex Veterans Services District is issuing the Korean Ambassador for Peace Medal. Please contact the Veterans Office at 978-356-3915.
Mr. Chairman, just to follow up on that, as the Veterans Coordinator, there will be a ceremony held on Friday, October 20th, 2017 at 4 p.m. at the Performing Arts Center in Ipswich, at the Ipswich High School. The Korean Consulate will be presenting the Korean Ambassador for Peace Medals at that particular time to Korean War veterans on next to kin. Okay.
Do we add that to our Friday, October 20th?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. And the information on the Pine Grove School project is available on the town's website at www.townofraleigh.net. The town has the following vacancies: Cultural Council, 2 seats; Open Space Committee, 2 seats; Fence Viewer, 3 positions; Wood, Lumber, and Bark Inspector; Zoning Board of Appeals, 1 seat; Zoning Board of Appeals Associate, 2 seats; Parks and Recreation Committee, 1 seat; Deputy Shellfish Constables, 2 positions. For more information on these positions, please contact the Selectmen's Office at 948-2372. The Raleigh Food Pantry is in need of donations. Donations can be left at the Raleigh Public Library. The food pantry is open on Tuesdays from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. and on Thursdays from 5:30 p.m. to 7 p.m.
Any motion to adjourn, Mr. Chairman?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.